It was 6:42 p.m. on a Thursday when my phone buzzed with a message that didn't just raise an eyebrow, it detonated something inside me. Going off grid this weekend. My ex booked me a spa getaway. Don't be jealous. That was it. No, hope that's okay. No, just wanted to let you know. Not even a half-assed excuse pretending it was for work. Just a smug, three-sentence masterpiece of disrespect and delusion. The kind of message you send when you think the man on the other end is too stupid, too soft, or too scared to respond. I stared at the screen like it was a foreign language, trying to translate the sheer gall. Mallory and I had been married 8 years. She was younger by a good 20, beautiful, sharp, charming in a way that made people lean in. And I'd been proud of that once, proud to be the guy she picked, thought maybe the old paramedic still had something to offer besides a pension and decent credit. But lately, it was like watching someone gently erase you in real time. At first, it was subtle. She stopped saying goodnight, then she started locking her phone, then the girls' nights that ended in Ubers at 2 a.m. I asked questions, gently, respectfully. Her answers got shorter, her tone got sharper. You're just paranoid. It's all your work stress. Funny how the same woman who once told me I was her rock now acted like I was the dead weight around her ankle. And now this, a weekend with her ex, booked by him, supposedly. Except the last time she mentioned this man, it was with a disgusted scoff about how he still messages like it's 2009. She told me he was blocked. Ancient history, ghost of a lesson learned. Yet somehow, this ghost had managed to manifest into a weekend retreat at one of the most exclusive mountain spas in the state. Off-grid, no less. You don't go off-grid for foot scrubs and green juice. You go off-grid to lie with abandon. I didn't reply, didn't call, didn't send a single "Are you serious?" text. I just stood up, walked into my office, opened the locked drawer where I keep anything I might need when the oxygen runs out and the sirens start. It's a habit from the old days. I was a paramedic for 23 years, learned to keep my essentials close because you never know when the air will get thin. Inside that drawer were two things: a laminated copy of our marriage certificate and the latest credit card statement she hadn't bothered to glance at. Because here's the kicker, I pay for everything. I always have. It's how she framed our dynamic. I was the provider, her support, her stability. So when she needed a new MacBook for branding clients, swipe. When she wanted to redesign her home office, swipe. When she asked for a spa membership because aesthetic upkeep is part of the job, I didn't blink. But guess what popped up 3 days ago? A pending charge from Evergreen Ridge Resort. $29,1750 deluxe spa package. 2 guests. Booked under my name. She didn't even try to hide it. Didn't use her card. Didn't change the reservation name. Just took the hand that fed her and slapped it across the face. And that was the moment it stopped hurting. The betrayal stopped bleeding and started calcifying. I wasn't going to rage. That's what she expected. A meltdown, a scene, something she could point to and say, "See, controlling." No, I was going to handle it the way I handled a 6-car pileup on I-5 in the rain with 2 DOAs and a baby not breathing. Calm, clinical, precise. I sat down, pulled out a manila folder, and began to make a list. Not of what she'd done. No, I already knew that part. I made a list of what I was going to do next. And while I'm at it, if you're still reading this and you've ever been blindsided by someone you loved, but still kept your dignity, maybe do me a favor, follow this thread. It helps more than you know, and this team deserves it. Over 90% of you read without subscribing, but it's the support that keeps these stories alive. Just saying. Now, back to Mallory. She thought she'd booked herself a weekend of facials, steam rooms, and whatever other euphemism her ex was bringing to the table. What she really booked? A one-way appointment with reality. And I was going to make sure it was waiting for her in the lobby. The resort was called Evergreen Ridge, one of those glass and stone mountain temples built for influencers and divorcees with money to burn. Mallory had mentioned it offhand months ago while scrolling through her phone at dinner, said a friend had gone and came back a new woman. I remember nodding, pretending to listen, while she swiped through pictures of infinity pools, salt caves, couples massages. It had been aspirational back then. A someday splurge. Apparently someday was now. I dialed the number, still half expecting someone to tell me there'd been a mistake, that maybe the charge was a glitch, a refund pending, some other Richard M. in the system. No such luck. "Thank you for holding, Mr. M." the receptionist chirped with a voice that had been trained to exhale endorphins. Yes, I see your reservation for this weekend. Saturday through Monday, Suite 304, deluxe spa package for two. Everything's confirmed. For a second, I couldn't speak. My own name echoed in my ear like someone else had stolen it. She used my name, my card, my identity essentially, all for a weekend with the man she once described as a narcissist with a dad bod and a god complex. I guess nostalgia's a hell of a drug. Can I update the welcome note? I asked, trying not to let my voice shake. Of course, she said brightly. We love personal touches. Just email or fax it and we'll print it on spa stationery. Fax. God bless old technology. I told her I'd send it within the hour. Then I hung up and sat there in the quiet of my office, watching the cursor blink on a blank Word document. What do you say in a welcome note to a woman you're about to legally sever from your life? The first attachment was easy. A scanned copy of our marriage certificate, the legal proof, the one that matched the name on the reservation, the card, the charge, the thing that made it undeniably our booking, even though only one of us would be staying. The second? A note. Short. Written with the kind of calm I used to use when telling a mother her son didn't make it out of the wreck. Mallory, enjoy the view. It costs more than you thought. R. That was it. I printed both, signed the note, folded them together, then faxed them to the number the receptionist gave me. And just like that, the trap started breathing. The thing most people don't realize about humiliation is that it doesn't need volume. It thrives in silence. A folded piece of paper at the right moment, a look from a stranger, a pause too long at the front desk. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to burst through the spa with a camera. I was going to let the infrastructure of her lie collapse on its own. But before that could happen, I had more prep to do. Because Mallory may have thought this was just another weekend getaway, but I knew better. This wasn't a trip. It was her audition for a new life. And I was about to cut the lights before she made it to the stage. Mallory always had this little ritual when she packed for a girls' weekend. Glass of white wine, jazz she didn't really like playing low from the Bluetooth speaker, that red robe she wore when she wanted to feel sexy for no one in particular. Except this time, I watched her hum through her routine with a brightness I hadn't seen in months. Not since before she got back in touch with her ex. Not since she started acting like our home was a rest stop and not the place she swore vows in. She laid out a cream-colored suitcase on the bed. Brand new, still had the tag. Funny, considering we hadn't traveled together in over a year. Inside she packed like she was dressing for seduction by scent. Silk camisoles, those strappy heels she once claimed gave her migraines, a black lace set I hadn't seen before and sure as hell never removed. There was no gym gear, no books, not even a phone charger. Just lingerie, lipstick, and the confidence of someone who thought the truth was safely hidden in plain sight. Spa weekend, no signal, don't wait up, she chirped like a woman in a commercial for herbal tea. I was in the living room, sitting in my recliner, TV glowing without sound. I didn't look up, just raised an eyebrow and offered a lazy, enjoy yourself. She stood there a moment, waiting for something, a protest, a sarcastic jab, anything, but I gave her nothing, because I wasn't the man she thought she was dancing around. I wasn't confused anymore. I was waiting. I heard the wheels of her suitcase thud down the front steps, then the distinct double beep of her phone unlocking as she got in the car. She wasn't calling an Uber. I knew that. I'd seen the car before, 2 nights ago, parked a little too far down the block. Tinted windows, engine idling too long. He didn't even have the guts to get out and ring the bell. I watched the taillights retreat down the road, reflecting briefly in the living room window before disappearing into the dark. And then I moved. I stood up, not in a rush, not dramatic, and walked back to my office, opened the bottom drawer again. This time, I reached for a different envelope. Heavier. It had sat there untouched for months. Originally, it was where I'd stored old birthday cards from her, receipts from our wedding rings, the kind of sentimental clutter you keep when you still believe in us. Now it held something different. Inside were photos. Screenshots from her tablet she'd left unlocked after one too many glasses of wine. Snippets of messages she thought she'd deleted. Mallory wasn't tech-savvy. She thought swipe to delete was enough. But her cloud account was still connected to the iMac in the guest room, and I knew where the backups lived. One photo showed her in the passenger seat of that same tinted window car, laughing, flipping off the camera. Another was a boomerang of her in front of the spa entrance from a week ago. She'd checked it out early with a friend. The caption was simple, Can't wait to come back and play. There was one message sent to a friend I'd never met that said, he still thinks I'm going alone. Men are so easy, just stroke their ego and disappear. Easy. That word stuck like a bone in my throat. The envelope also held a draft letter I'd written a week earlier, after I first suspected, addressed to her attorney. It was calm, factual, pre-signed, a courtesy copy for her records. But what I reached for now wasn't that, it was the printed retainer agreement from my lawyer. Already signed, already scanned, the real wheels had been turning for days. Asset protection, joint account freezes, property separation strategies. I wasn't just preparing for a split, I was building a firewall, quietly, legally. Because the thing about betrayal is, once it hits you, it's not the explosion that hurts most. It's the quiet parts, the silence after, the moment you realize they were already gone long before the door actually closed. I sat down at the desk and opened a new folder on my computer. Final prep. I copied everything over. Photos, documents, transaction history, not just the spa booking, but the hotel she accidentally stayed at last month on her work trip, the one I later confirmed had no conference that weekend. I included the makeup purchase from a store she never shops at, 20 minutes from her ex's apartment. The timeline built itself. Once everything was uploaded and encrypted, I sent a scheduled email to my lawyer with a note, trigger if I don't cancel by Sunday 11 p.m. Failsafe. Because if there's one thing I learned from watching people bleed out on the side of highways, it's that the worst damage is often internal, invisible until it's too late. You can look fine, smile, even walk, then drop dead. Mallory was walking toward her fantasy, the weekend that would reawaken her youth, her thrill, her old flame. She thought she was being clever, untouchable, that I was just another aging husband who didn't know how to hold on to her. But I wasn't holding on anymore. I was documenting the collapse, one signature at a time. By 11:12 p.m., the house was quiet, except for the faint tick of the grandfather clock in the hallway. I hadn't turned on a single light outside my office. Let the place stay dark. It matched the work I was doing. I wasn't pacing. I wasn't brooding in shadows. Like some noir cliche, I was sitting upright at my desk, reading, sorting, printing, labeling, the way I used to when prepping a trauma report, when seconds mattered and a single oversight meant someone didn't make it home. It's a strange thing, how infidelity activates the same part of your brain as triage, the way your breath shortens, the way you start categorizing pain, prioritizing damage, determining which wounds can be treated and which are already fatal. I started with the text. Mallory never logged out of her iMessage on her iPad. She didn't even think to. The woman could wax poetic about microblading techniques, but couldn't grasp cloud syncing if her life depended on it. The thread that caught my eye was with someone named G, an initial I didn't recognize, but the tone was unmistakable. G. Does he suspect anything? Mallory. Please, he's too busy alphabetizing his pill organizer. There were photos too, some selfies. Some mirror shots in that robe she wore tonight. None of them for me. And then came the gem, a video snippet where she whispered to the camera, "Spa weekend vibes." And yes, I packed his toothbrush by mistake. LOL. In the background, male laughter. I airdropped the whole chat thread to my laptop, saved every image, compiled them in a folder labeled her. Next, social media, not hers. She was careful there. But her best friend's account was wide open, public, sloppy, tagged photos from last month. One showed Mallory at a wine bar, arm in arm with a man who wasn't me, captioned, "When exes age like wine," followed by a string of emojis that made my stomach turn. Another post had her holding up a spa brochure, grinning. No tags, but the file name on the image when I downloaded it, Mally X Weekend Plan JP, as if she wanted to get caught by someone. Just not by me. Then came the voicemail. A week ago, I'd overheard her giggling into her phone on the patio and managed to record a snippet. I forwarded it to my email that night out of instinct. It had sat in my inbox, untouched, like a sealed blood sample. Now I opened it, played it back. Mallory's voice, sharp with amusement, saying, "He still thinks I'm loyal. Men are so fragile. Just let them believe it. Cheaper than divorce." That line, cheaper than divorce. I could have laughed, I really could have, because she didn't know what I'd already moved, what accounts had been separated, what names had been scrubbed from titles, what protections were already in motion. By 3:40 a.m., my desk had transformed into something surgical. 3 folders: hotel, confirmation printouts, the faxed welcome note, time-stamped screenshots of the resort's booking system with my name front and center. Lawyer, emails with my attorney, power of attorney forms in case she tried to touch anything that didn't have her name on it. Her, everything else, every digital fingerprint she'd left in her rush to play house with a man who wasn't her husband. Then came the last piece, the revised property agreement, originally drafted 2 years ago when we'd considered opening a boutique together. Mallory's idea, a wellness studio for women in transition. It never got off the ground. But the paperwork sat in my archives, and I'd updated it, removed her, filed the necessary transfer documents weeks ago. Tonight, I printed the final version. All it needed was my signature, notarization already arranged for Monday morning. I signed, slipped the document into a fresh envelope, placed a pen inside, sealed it. At 5:12 a.m., I sat back in my chair and finally let myself feel the weight. Not sadness, not even betrayal, just something deeper, a quiet, precise kind of fury, the kind that doesn't shout or weep, the kind that sharpens. People think when you get cheated on, it's all fire and broken plates. No, the real damage is quiet. It's arithmetic. It's watching the life you built being rewritten in someone else's handwriting while they still expect you to foot the bill. Well, the bill had come due, and by the time Mallory opened her complimentary spa robe, she'd be staring at an invoice for everything she thought came free. She arrived in full performance mode, oversized sunglasses, fresh blowout, a silk wrap dress that clung in all the places she knew would register on a lobby camera. Her heels clicked across the marble floor of the Evergreen Ridge Resort with a confidence so manufactured it should have come with a trademark symbol. The receptionist, a young woman with a pixie cut and the kind of customer service face that had clearly seen it all, looked up from her monitor. Her smile didn't falter, but her eyes flicked, just briefly, toward the man in the corner. "Welcome to Evergreen Ridge," she said, "checking in under Richard M.?" Mallory smiled, removing her sunglasses with a casual flourish. "That's right. Reservation for the weekend." She leaned in slightly. "He's not coming." The receptionist didn't blink. "Of course. Before we proceed, I have something here for you." She reached under the counter and retrieved a sealed envelope, thick and weighty, with Mrs. Mallory M. written across the front in crisp block letters. Mallory tilted her head. "From the resort?" "No, ma'am," the receptionist replied. "Your husband sent it ahead." A flicker, just a flicker of tension in Mallory's posture. She took the envelope slowly, her smile faltering as she turned it over in her hands like it might explode. It did, not with fire, but with precision. She pulled the documents out and immediately saw the header, "Petition for Dissolution of Marriage." Her name, my name, the date. A yellow post-it note marked the signature line with a pen clipped on. Beneath it, a scanned copy of our marriage license, highlighted where her signature appeared next to mine. Below that, a printed credit card statement with all the relevant charges annotated: spa booking, pre-treatment deposits, a romantic dinner for two, package I apparently purchased without my knowledge. And on the final page, my note, written in ink, handwritten: "You forgot who paid for your freedom." She stood there, frozen, documents in hand, while behind her the receptionist asked gently, "Would you like to continue with check-in?" But she didn't answer, because that's when she noticed them. The man in the business suit, standing near the fireplace, reading a folded newspaper that he hadn't turned a page on in 10 minutes. And beside him, a woman, not a guest, not hotel staff. She held a DSLR camera, not raised, not pointed, just hanging around her neck. But the lens cap was already off. Mallory turned pale, not because she recognized them, but because she suddenly understood. This wasn't a scene, it was a stage. And I'd written every cue. She spun back toward the desk. "I didn't authorize this. He can't, this is a private trip." The receptionist kept her tone smooth. "The reservation was made under his name, with his card. Legally, You're a guest by proxy. We're happy to accommodate you, if he confirms. Her voice was gentle, professional, but the words landed like knives. Mallory's hand trembled slightly. She pressed the divorce packet against her chest as if it could shield her from the scrutiny building around her. People were watching now, other guests pretending not to stare, employees pausing mid-task. And the photographer? Now she raised the camera, slowly, deliberately, not for blackmail, not for drama, just documentation. That was always the point. Mallory turned toward the elevator, probably intending to flee upward to the sanctuary of a spa suite she didn't own on a weekend she hadn't paid for. But she didn't get far, because before she could step away, a voice came over the concierge's earpiece. Soft, measured. Is she proceeding with check-in? The receptionist waited, then glanced up at Mallory and said, "Actually, ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to wait here a moment." Mallory blinked. What? Why? Management's on their way. There's been a discrepancy. She glanced around, realizing she was boxed in. No retreat, no explanation ready, no Instagram filter to blur the reality. The woman who walked in with the confidence of someone about to be pampered was now gripping legal documents, surrounded by strangers, under the slow, silent gaze of a camera. And I was watching the entire thing unfold on the hotel's lobby live stream. Because when you pay for the suite, you also pay for the footage. He walked in like he owned the damn lobby. Leather jacket, too tight jeans, designer sunglasses worn indoors, like some faded rock star clinging to his last hit. His name was Troy, because of course it was. The kind of man who peaked at 35, kept telling stories about how he almost went pro, and still used phrases like alpha male without irony. The same guy Mallory once swore she'd never go back to because he's allergic to anything with emotional depth. Apparently, he'd been medicating that allergy with her body for the last few months. He strutted through the entrance with the energy of a man about to be rewarded for bad decisions. Phone in one hand, overnight bag in the other, smirk already half loaded. He didn't even ask the front desk for her, just spotted Mallory standing frozen near the fireplace, still holding the divorce packet like it might start screaming. "There she is," he said with a grin, stepping forward like a man walking into a weekend fantasy. "Room ready? I brought the—" He stopped mid-sentence. His eyes dropped to the papers in her hands. Read the bold title, Divorce, the yellow tabs, the highlighted charges, the note, now crumpled but still legible. "You forgot who paid for your freedom." Wait, what is this? Mallory looked at him like a woman waking up in someone else's nightmare. "It's nothing, it's just Richard being dramatic. He's trying to ruin this." Troy blinked. "He's here?" "No, he just sent—" She lowered her voice. "Look, we'll talk upstairs." Except they wouldn't. Because just then, one of the hotel's senior staff, an assistant manager in a navy blazer, hair tied tight, clipboard in hand, approached with professional poise and the calm of someone used to dealing with people pretending they were more important than they were. "Mr. Troy E.?" He turned toward her, surprised. Yeah. Would you mind stepping over here with me for a moment?" He followed, frowning, as the manager guided him away from the front desk and into the privacy of a side corridor, just far enough for the rest of the guests to hear the tension, but not the details. Mallory strained to hear, clutching the documents tighter. Troy's voice rose just enough to carry, "What do you mean, invalid?" The manager replied, quiet but firm, "The reservation is under Richard M., your companion's husband. The credit card was in his name and has been frozen per the owner's request. Unfortunately, unless he authorizes an update or you secure a new form of payment, we can't check you in." "But this is all a mistake," Troy said, his confidence starting to crack. "We've got plans." "Treatment's booked." "I'm sorry, sir. Without valid authorization, the room is no longer available." Mallory stormed toward them, heels stabbing into the polished tile like she could will reality to bend. "This is ridiculous," she snapped. "Just charge my card." The manager glanced down at the file. "I'm afraid we don't have a card on file under your name." "Fine, I'll give it now. And there's the matter of the legal documents." Her tone tightened. "Ma'am, it would be unwise to proceed without reviewing the contents." Mallory looked like she might combust. "It's just scare tactics. He's trying to embarrass me." No one disagreed. No one needed to. Troy looked between them, between her and the clipboard, the staff, the camera still quietly tracking the lobby, and something shifted. The grin was gone. That alpha energy evaporated like sweat in the Colorado air. "This wasn't what you said," he muttered. She turned to him, desperate. "It's under control. He's just lashing out. He won't go through with any of it." But he was already backing up, shaking his head. "This is a mess, Mal. I didn't sign up for legal drama. I thought we were getting a weekend away, not whatever this is." She reached for his arm. He pulled it back. "You should have handled your shit," he said, then added with a sneer, "Guess I'm not the only one you lied to." He turned and walked out. Not fast, not slow, just gone. Mallory stood there, trembling, caught between rage and shame. She looked back at the staff, trying to reset the moment, tried to find a tone that might win the room. "I'm a paying guest," she hissed. "You can't just kick me out." "We're not kicking you out," the manager said coolly. "We're simply enforcing our policies. You're welcome to rebook under your own name and payment." Silence. She didn't move, because that was the final piece she hadn't prepared for. I'd frozen the card, the very one that bought her skincare, her yoga classes, her flighty little lies. The card that funded her fantasy. It was gone. Disabled that morning with one call and a confirmation code. No robe, no suite, no facial, no man. Just her. And the cold weight of a reservation she thought no one could take from her. But I didn't take it. She gave it away the moment she thought I wouldn't notice. Mallory snapped. All the carefully preserved glamour cracked in an instant like a champagne flute dropped on tile. One second she was trying to salvage the situation with forced poise. The next, her voice was ricocheting off the spa walls. "I want to speak to someone above you. This is harassment. You can't do this. I paid for this weekend." The manager didn't flinch. That woman had likely diffused corporate meltdowns from twice the income bracket. "Ma'am," she said, tone as level as marble, "we're simply enforcing the reservation terms. The cardholder has revoked authorization, and the booking is no longer valid." Mallory's eyes darted around the lobby, searching for allies. She looked ridiculous, eyes bloodshot, foundation cracking, holding a folder of legal paperwork in one hand and her designer tote in the other like it might still grant her some kind of immunity. "This is emotional abuse," she shouted, voice rising with each syllable. "He's trying to control me, manipulate the narrative. I have rights." The manager offered a thin, professional smile. "Yes, ma'am, and we have policies." Then came the click of polished black shoes on tile. Security, 2 of them. Not aggressive, not even particularly imposing, just quiet, broad, and unmistakably there to end the scene. "Mrs. M," one of them said, addressing her formally, "we'll need you to step outside with us." Mallory turned, eyes wide. "Are you escorting me out? Are you serious?" Behind her, other guests pretended not to stare, but the interest was undeniable. A couple whispering near the juice bar. A man by the fireplace filming discreetly with his phone half tucked in a book. Even the woman at the reception desk had slowed her typing, glancing up just enough to register what was happening. Her ex, Troy, hovered near the entrance, clearly torn between guilt and cowardice. When Mallory looked at him, eyes pleading, he muttered something low and useless like, "I told you this was too risky," before ducking out the automatic doors like a man trying to erase himself. She didn't follow him. She looked back at the staff, the security guards, the lobby full of eyes. "This is illegal," she shrieked, voice cracking. "You'll be hearing from my lawyer." But her threats hung hollow in the air, because just as the guards moved to gently guide her toward the door, a man in a gray uniform stepped through the entrance. He carried a black courier bag embossed with a gold-lettered logo, Barron and Faulkner LLP. He spotted her instantly, walked up with the precision of someone who'd been sent with exact timing. "Mrs. Mallory M?" he asked. She blinked. "Who's asking?" "Courier service, you've been served." She barely had time to react before the envelope was pressed into her hand. This one wasn't thick, just a few pages, but the weight it carried, immense. Inside, a letter from my attorney. Official notice of intent to pursue dissolution of marriage on grounds of fraud, misuse of marital funds, and preemptive breach of property agreement. Also enclosed, a summary of the joint financial freeze order already in place. Not retroactive, effective yesterday. Meaning, everything she'd been relying on, bank account access, supplemental credit, vehicle registration tied to my name. It was gone, not as punishment, not out of spite, out of structure, cold, calculated legal structure. Please confirm receipt by initialing here, the courier said, unfazed by her gaping silence. She signed with a trembling hand. Then, as the guards flanked her, still polite, still careful, she took one last desperate look around. The lobby had moved on. Someone was being handed a complimentary smoothie. A couple was checking in at the desk behind her. A staff member was adjusting flower arrangements near the window. No one cared. No one came to her defense, because by now, even the performance had lost its audience. She was escorted outside. No robe, no refund, no massage, just the feel of cool mountain air against skin that for once wasn't being pampered, but exposed. And I was already driving. Not to her, but past her, because she'd spent months treating me like background noise in her fantasy. But now, she was the one fading out. That evening, while Mallory was pacing the gravel outside Evergreen Ridge, desperately trying to get a signal strong enough to log into her frozen bank app, a padded envelope was quietly delivered to a modest stucco house 2 states away. Her parents' house. They were the kind of people who still checked the mail at the same time every day. Her father, Walter, opened it while standing by the kitchen counter, his reading glasses perched at the edge of his nose, still wearing his lawn-mowing sneakers and the world's okayest dad shirt Mallory had given him years ago. Inside the envelope, no accusations, no rants, no dramatic cover letter. Just documentation. 3 neatly printed exhibits, paper-clipped with a precision that had nothing to prove. Exhibit A, screenshots of text messages, her calling me boring, mocking our anniversary dinner, laughing about pretending to be committed until the house sells. Exhibit B, credit card charges, the spa weekend, the late-night wine bars, a jewelry boutique she'd claimed was just window shopping, all highlighted, all time-stamped, all tied to my name. Exhibit C, a single-page letter. It wasn't addressed, Dear Walter and Doreen. No sentiment, no posturing, just a statement printed in 12-point Times New Roman centered. She needed you to believe I was the problem. No signature. Just that, Walter didn't speak for a long time. He reread the messages. His fingers hovered above one where Mallory wrote, He still thinks I'm loyal. I'm not even loyal to my skincare brand. He squinted at a transaction from a hotel in Palm Springs, dated the same weekend she told them she was at a yoga retreat. He sat down at the table and stared at the envelope. Doreen came in from watering her orchids, wiping her hands on her jeans. What's that? He handed her the letter without a word. Her lips tightened as she read. By the time she got to the text transcripts, her face had gone pale. Is this real? She whispered. Walter didn't answer. He reached for his phone instead. I was in my study when it rang. I recognized the number, hesitated, then answered. He didn't waste time. I'm sorry, he said. No preamble, no defensiveness. Just that. We raised her better than this. I sat back in my chair, letting the silence settle between us for a second before I responded. I know. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't closure. It was just a moment of clarity between 2 men who now understood each other in a way neither had expected. He didn't defend her. He didn't explain it away with childhood trauma or stress or hormones. He didn't ask me what came next. He just knew. That was the power of truth stripped of theater. And for Mallory, it was the beginning of a new kind of silence. Because until now, she'd always had them. Her parents. Her safety net. The phone calls when we fought. The motherly advice whispered like a prescription. He just needs to feel important, honey. Stroke his ego a little. They believed her. Because she sold it well. Tears at the right moments. Faux humility, talking about emotional distance like she was a victim of weather, not someone steering the ship directly into the rocks. But now, the curtain was pulled back, and behind it wasn't a woman fighting for her marriage. It was a manipulator who used their trust like currency. She'd spent years convincing them I was controlling, distant, cold. All it took to dismantle that narrative was 4 pages and a silence she couldn't interrupt. That night, I poured a glass of bourbon, stood out on the porch, and looked up at the sky, the same sky she once called unromantic, because I didn't say anything poetic under it. Funny. It felt different now, lighter, because the house might still carry echoes of her perfume, and the occasional ghost of a laugh from better days, but the real weight, the one I couldn't name until now, was gone. Not because she was gone, but because someone else finally saw her the way I did. And unlike her fantasy weekend, that couldn't be undone with charm or cleavage or crocodile tears. Her insulation was gone. Now the cold was hers to feel. She started calling that Sunday night, first my cell, then the house line, then she tried my office number at the station, out of date by 2 years. I didn't answer any of them. Her voicemail started controlled, performative, like she was still negotiating the terms of a reality she hadn't accepted yet. Richard, look, I think we both let things spiral. I shouldn't have kept things from you, but this is just too much. Can we please talk? Then came the email, subject, can we start over? No greeting, no punctuation, just a rambling confession strung together with half-truths and bruised ego. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I just wanted excitement, something different. You've changed, and I felt like I was disappearing. I know you're hurt, but I'm hurting too. Please don't do this. Don't end us like this. We've built so much. What she really meant was, don't let the consequences catch me. What she really feared was silence. Mine, the kind that made her realize how powerless she truly was without an audience to manipulate. She called again the next morning, left a voicemail this time with tears so labored they sounded rehearsed. Please, just talk to me. I'm sorry, okay? I panicked. You're not being fair. I was stupid, yes, but I thought you still loved me. I thought we had something left. And she was right. We had something, but not anymore. Because sometimes the most precise scalpel isn't a fight, it's absence. And the loudest punishment you can give someone who lives for performance is to not clap. So I sent her something instead, not a message, not a reply, a package delivered to her office, her pristine little corner suite with the fake plant and framed diploma she never quite earned but always displayed. It arrived mid-morning, signed for by her assistant. She likely assumed it was a peace offering, maybe a watch, maybe a letter, a final plea to reconsider. Instead, it was a single black frame, no glass, no gold edges, just matte black wood around a printed screenshot of her own words, centered perfectly on a white background. My ex booked me a spa weekend, don't be jealous. Below it, in unmistakable blue ink, my handwriting, that text cost you everything. That's it. No threats, no explanation, no timeline of her betrayal, no photos, no receipts, just her own words, frozen in time, framed and final, like a museum plaque to the precise moment she burned the bridge while dancing on it. Her assistant told a friend of mine that she stared at it for over 10 minutes. Didn't speak, didn't move, just stared, and then cried, not the rage cry she used on me when she wanted to guilt me, not the crocodile tears she pulled out for her parents when she needed cover. This was different. This was the kind of crying that comes when a person finally realizes the game's not just over, it was never theirs to win, because she thought she could curate reality, craft a version of our story where she was misunderstood, unfulfilled, just a woman seeking joy in a world of cold husbands and boring routines. But reality doesn't care about narratives. Reality is a screenshot and a sentence. She'd spent weeks telling herself I wouldn't dare fight back. And I didn't. I documented. I planned. I moved with the patience of a man who'd cut seatbelts in burning cars, who'd held a stranger's hand while they bled, who knew how to keep still while the world collapsed, until it was my turn to move. And when I did, I didn't yell. I framed. So that every time she looked at it, whether she hid it in a drawer or left it buried under papers, it would wait. Quiet, eternal, unignorable. Her monument to the text that ended her life as she knew it. The road to the trailhead curved right past Evergreen Ridge. Sharp bend, no guardrail. Enough of a slope that you'd normally slow down, glance sideways, maybe admire the view, the way the resort tucked itself into the trees like a secret. But I didn't lift my eyes, didn't scan for her car, didn't look for security pacing the entrance or hotel staff collecting the fallout, didn't care. I just drove, one hand on the wheel, windows down. The air smelled like pine and distance, the kind that stretches between a man and the version of himself he no longer owes explanations to. My phone buzzed against the center console, one long vibration, her. Probably the third attempt since sunrise. I didn't need to read it. I already knew the pattern. Regret, nostalgia, desperation, guilt. The words would blur together like wine in a white rug, unfixable. Even if you scrubbed hard. I deleted it without opening. There's a silence that follows that kind of gesture. Not quiet exactly, more like a release, like the room exhales with you. Reached into the chest pocket of my flannel and pulled out a piece of folded paper, not thick, not ceremonial, just a few pages of legal ink that said the life Mallory and I had built was no longer shared, signed, finalized, processed by the court 2 days earlier. I unfolded it once, looked at the embossed seal near the bottom, and then folded it again, not because I needed to reread it, but because sometimes you have to hold the proof. The evidence that you didn't just imagine the nightmare, and that it's actually over. In the passenger seat, my hiking pack sat where her purse used to rest. The same seat where she once applied lipstick in the mirror, humming the same 3 notes over and over, where she tossed receipts I'd end up finding later with someone else's name scribbled on them. Now there was only the rustle of a windbreaker, a canteen, and something else slid in between the zipper flaps that morning. A cruise brochure, Caribbean, 7 days, adults only, no couples pricing, balcony cabin, in my name, paid in full at 7:03 a.m. with a different card. One she didn't know existed, one she'd never touched, not out of spite, not as a message, just as proof that freedom doesn't need permission. Only clarity. I pulled into the gravel lot at the trail entrance, only one other car there, an old Subaru with faded stickers about mountains and mindfulness. Fitting. I stepped out, stretched my back, and let the weight settle in my boots instead of my chest. A year ago, I would have waited for her to come back from her weekend with the girls, for her to slip up again, so I could finally confront her, for some conversation, some closure that would never really arrive. But I wasn't waiting anymore. Not for her, not for answers, not even for the future. I hiked the trail alone, didn't time it, didn't check my pulse. Just walked. Every step forward took me further from the man who tolerated, who rationalized, who made excuses on her behalf. That man was useful once, patient, loyal, but he was done now. He wasn't angry. He wasn't bitter. He was free. And Mallory, she could keep her silence, her framed mistakes, her empty spa weekend memories, and the echo of a man she used to manipulate. Because from here on out, there was nothing left for me to fix. No robe, no refund, no return.